My name is Melissa, and I'm going to talk about an interesting topic. This is my partial, and I choose a very interesting topic that you upload on the platform. And so, first, to introduce you to this subject, I'm going to tell you a story that I found when I was looking information about this topic. So I'm going to tell you the story, and it's about a guy who had a little girl, and he was a slave. So this guy had a little girl, and he was a slave. In the Brooklyn, the slave owner wouldn't let him leave when his daughter was sick to seek medical treatment, and they said, you know what, she will be fine, nothing wrong going to happen to her, so just keep working. And then she turned for the worst, and they begged to leave, and the owner said, no, yeah, first your job, so finish your work first and then you can leave. So then his daughter died, and literally had to bury his own daughter at the brick kiln, and the owner wouldn't even let him bury his own daughter until after he'd finished making his bricks. And I found this information in the International Justice Mission in channel on YouTube. And so yeah, I'm going to talk about the slavery. And what is slavery? Well, slavery is any system in which principles of property law are applied to people, allowing individuals to own, buy, and sell other individuals as a form of property. So slavery refers to a condition in which individuals are owned by others who control them where they live and at work. Slavery had previously existed throughout history and many times and in many places and many countries around the world. And the ancient Greeks, the Romans, the Incas, and the Aztecs all had slaves. And well, a slave can be a person could become a slave from the time of the birth, capture, or purchase. So, what does it mean to be a slave or a slave person? Well, to be a slave is to be owned by another person. A slave is a human being placed as property and who is forced to work for nothing. An enslaved person is a human being who is made to be a slave. The UNESCO states that slavery is indefinite by an element of ownership or control over another's life, and the restriction of movement, and by the fact that someone is not free to live. And through this definition, the UN declared in the 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights that every type of slavery is prohibited. Thought it has been 72 years since this universal identification of slavery as an affront to human rights. The business of many types of slavery persists. I used to believe that everyone, everywhere, has the right to a life free from slavery, but right now millions of children and adults are trapped in slavery in every single country in the world, even in the country where I live, and there are around 45 million people living in slavery today, and that is called the modern slavery. So, what is the modern slavery? Well, the modern slavery is not the same as it was before. The modern slavery is the severe exploitation of other people for personal or commercial gain. The modern slavery is all around us, but often just out of sight. people can become intrigued making our clothes, serving our food, picking our crops, working in factories, or working in houses as a cooks, cleaners, or nannies. Um, Here where I live, I know many people that works in factories, but sometimes in some cases, well, it's supposed that here you need to work like 8 hours a day, I guess. But sometimes some people work like 14, 15 hours, and they call like the extra hours, but they don't pay the extra hours. Um, and even sometimes they need to work from Monday to Sunday. So from the outside, it can look like a normal job, but in many cases, as I said, people are being controlled. They can face violence or threat, be forced into inescapable debt, or have their passport taken away, and are being threatened with deportation. So the modern slavery takes many forms, and the most common are the human trafficking, the forced labor, the bond labor, the descent-based slavery, the slavery of children, and the forced and early marriage. The human trafficking, I before I look I before I was looking for information about this topic, I only know the human trafficking and the slavery of children. But now that I read a lot about this topic, I found that it is in many cases, and that we can see like it's a normal job, but it's not. It's a slavery. It's a new form. It's the modern slavery. The human trafficking. Well, the human trafficking is the use of violent threat or coercion to transport, recruit, or harbor people in order to exploit them for purposes such as forced prostitution, labor, criminally marriage, or organ removal. And the forced labor is any work or services that people are forced to work to do against their will under threat, punishment, and bone labor. Well, I'm going to, when I was looking information about this topic, I found that like a testimony that a woman said, and I'm going to read what she said. And she said that the bone labor is a slavery where you are actually working out your loan and lose all the freedom that there is absolutely restricted, freedom of movement restricted, freedom of employment. You don't get the rights that you deserve. Somebody owns you and everything that you make. We have seen people treat for generation of the basis of every small loan amount as small as $3 or $5. So the bone labor is when the people trapped in poverty borrow money and are forced to work to pay off the debt, losing control over both their employment conditions and the debt. And the base slavery, this base slavery is most traditional from where people are treated as property and their slave status was passed down the maternal line. The slavery of children. Well, the slavery of children is when a child is exploited for someone else's gain, and this can include child trafficking, child soldiers, and child marriage and child domestic slavery. Where here where I live, is very common to see when you go to the supermarket and to see children's like they are, I don't know, like 6, 7, and 10 years old, and they are selling something, and sometimes it's because they are orphans and they need food, they need money for buy food, and but sometimes it's because their parents tell them, if you don't bring me money to this house, I'm not going to give you food. So they are obligated to sell something in the streets, and it's um, it's very sad when I see any children in the street selling something. Is very sad to me, and I always try to to help them. And well, here no, but in another countries happens that the child marriage, the parents sell the girls to the little girls to get married with an old man. So just for the money, just because they need food, they need medicines, or they need, I don't know, whatever. But they sold their daughter to get married with an old man. So, and the last one is the forced and early marriage. Well, it's when someone is married against their will and cannot leave. Most child marriage can be considered slavery, as I already said. And people end up trapped in modern slavery because they are vulnerable and to being treated, trapped and exploited, often as a result of poverty and exclusion. Is this external circumstance that push people into taking risky decisions in search of opportunities to provide food for their families, or simply push into jobs in exploited conditions. So sometimes the people do this just because they need to help their families. They really need the money, so they end up in this awful situation. So yeah, that's all.